2004, Lisbon. 10 million people watching a tournament on their own soil. Sure, this was finally the year. Portugal had put together, by almost any measure, one of the most loaded squads European football had seen in years. Luis Figo, Ballon d'Or winner and captain, a man who'd already conquered both Barcelona and Real Madrid. Deco, Brazilian-born, just off winning the Champions League with Porto. Arguably the most technically gifted midfielder in the world at that point. And behind them, an 18-year-old kid named Cristiano Ronaldo, already making crowds do a double take. Quick thing before we go on. If this kind of story is your thing, hit like, send it to whoever you argue about this era of football with, and subscribe. Genuinely helps. Okay, back to Lisbon. This wasn't a team hoping to hang around. This was a team built to win the thing outright. They made the final, at home, in front of their own supporters. And they lost to Greece, a side ranked well below them, that figured out how to strangle superior talent through sheer discipline. Portugal's first major final in the modern era, and it ended about as painfully as it could. Not beaten by a better team, but by one that simply wouldn't let them play their game. 2 years on, at the 2006 World Cup, they went further than most people gave them credit for. Deco, Figo, and a 21-year-old Ronaldo dragged them to the semis, a tournament people still remember for its controversy as much as its football, including that quarter-final against England. France ended the run, a Zidane penalty doing the damage. 4th place, their best World Cup finish in decades. By the time the next crop came through, the talent pool had only gotten deeper. Nani brought raw pace and unpredictability out wide. Pepe was the kind of defender who could outmuscle anyone in the world. And Ronaldo, no longer that teenager, had become, by most reasonable measures, the best footballer alive. Later still, a whole new supporting cast showed up around him. Bernardo Silva, about as complete a midfielder as you'll find. Bruno Fernandes, someone who could pick apart any defense in Europe on a good day. Stretch it out across 2 decades, and Portugal didn't really have one golden generation. They had several, stacked on top of each other, with the most prolific international goalscorer in history sitting at the center of every single one. By any standard sports analysts used to project success, squad depth, individual quality, tournament experience, sustained competitiveness across multiple cycles, this was a country that should have won a World Cup. Not by a whisker, not through some fluke, through sheer accumulated talent, over and over, with one of the greatest players the game has ever produced, never once leaving the squad. And when Ronaldo's international career finally ends, the one trophy that needs 11 players to lift together will be the single thing this golden generation, in every version of itself, never got its hands on. The question isn't whether they had the talent. The record already answers that. The question is, if talent alone won World Cups, we'd already be done here. Portugal had it, again and again, across 20 years. And still, tournament after tournament, something broke between the roster on paper and what actually happened on the pitch. To figure out why, you have to stop looking at the names and start looking at the shape of the team itself. There's a term sports analysts use for what happens to teams built around one transcendent player: star dependency. It's a documented pattern, not unique to Portugal or even to football. Teams that funnel everything through one elite performer often become easier to defend against in knockout football, not harder. Opposing managers know exactly where the threat is coming from. Build the whole game plan around shutting down one man, and if it works even for an hour, the rest of the system frequently has no real answer. This isn't a knock on anyone's ability. It's a structural issue. And it kept showing up. Under Luis Felipe Scolari, the manager behind that 2004 and 2006 group, Portugal tended to play solid and disciplined, hard to break down. The kind of team that could grind results out of stronger opponents. But that same caution, as plenty of people have pointed out since, sometimes boxed in the very players capable of doing something extraordinary. Figo and Deco, two of the most gifted attacking midfielders of their generation, played for a team that leaned toward control over creativity in some of the biggest matches of their careers, that 2004 final included. Years later, under Fernando Santos, Portugal found something different, and it actually worked once. The 2016 European Championship, won with Ronaldo off the pitch for most of the final after an early injury, is still the only trophy this whole era of players actually has. Analysts have picked over that result for years, and one observation keeps coming up. Portugal won a major tournament playing low possession, defensively organized, counter-attacking football that didn't hinge on Ronaldo controlling the game. By most accounts, it was one of the least Ronaldo-centric tournaments of his entire international career. And it's the one that delivered, which raises an uncomfortable question people in football media have asked out loud more than once. Was Portugal's clearest route to winning something actually built around leaning less on their greatest player, not more? At World Cup level, the pattern looks a little different. Qatar 2022, under Santos again. One of the tournament's most talked about decisions was benching Ronaldo for the last 16 game against Switzerland. A match Portugal won 6-1, their most emphatic scoreline of the whole tournament, without their captain in the starting 11. That call and the result got dissected everywhere. Portugal went out in the quarters against Morocco, Ronaldo coming on as a sub, visibly emotional, as what was by then realistically his last real shot at a World Cup ended with him watching most of it from the bench. Sports psychologists who study performance under pressure describe a familiar tension in situations like this, weighing loyalty to a legendary player against what the team actually needs tactically, especially late in that player's career when the gap between reputation and current output starts to widen. It's not specific to Ronaldo or Portugal. It shows up anywhere a team has spent years building its whole identity around one dominant figure who eventually ages past his peak, while staying, culturally and commercially, the face of the whole operation. None of this reduces the failures to one cause or puts them on one man. Scolari, Santos, and later, Roberto Martinez each brought different systems and different ideas about where to land on that control versus brilliance spectrum, rarely finding a balance that held for an entire tournament. What the record does show, the one tournament this generation won was the one where they leaned on their best player the least. And the tournaments where they leaned on him hardest were, disproportionately, the ones that ended early. Talent was never the missing piece. What football analysts keep circling back to is whether Portugal ever actually worked out how to build a system around their greatest asset without becoming dependent on it. So what does it mean to call a golden generation wasted? It's not bad luck. Luck is a good team losing to a better one on an off day. That's not what happened here, not across 20 years, not across 4 different managers, not across 3 or 4 separate generations of elite players. One bad break is luck. A pattern that repeats under Scolari, under Santos, under Martinez, across Figo's era and Ronaldo's and the players who came after, isn't luck. It's a structural problem nobody inside Portuguese football ever fully cracked. And it's not one man's fault either. That's the easy version, the one that pins a complicated institutional failure on a single face. The same instinct that turned a wink into a villain story back in 2006. But the record doesn't back a single villain read any more than it backs the bad luck one. The only trophy this era won came in the tournament, where the team depended on one player the least. That's not proof of anyone's failure. It's proof of a system that for most of 2 decades never became more than the sum of its most famous part. What actually happened is less satisfying than a villain and less comforting than bad luck. Portugal had, by any fair reading, enough individual brilliance to win multiple World Cups. What they didn't reliably have was a structure that could turn that brilliance into something collective enough to win the sport's biggest knockout tournament where discipline and squad-wide resilience matter just as much as any one player's talent. Winning a World Cup was never purely a talent contest. It's an organizational one too. That's the part Portugal, era after era, kept getting wrong. In 2026, Cristiano Ronaldo played his 6th World Cup, his last. 39 years old, in what everyone agreed going in was his final real chance to write a different ending. And Portugal's tournament ended the way so many of his others had, out in the knockout rounds, the trophy still out of reach. There's no phone call this time, the kind Ferguson made in 2006 for a 21-year-old caught up in a different crisis. No next tournament to fix it. This chapter just closes, the same way it closed for Figo, for Deco, the way it eventually closes for everyone who's worn that shirt across 2 decades of remarkable talent and unfinished business. What's left is the record. 1 European championship, won largely without him. 6 World Cups, played almost entirely with him at the center of everything. And the one trophy that needs more than a single man to lift, the thing that, across this entire golden era of Portuguese football, talent by itself was never going to be enough to win. Not a tragedy with a villain in it, just what wasted actually means.